Death came exactly when Joe Gardner was just beginning to live. But Pixar had a more twisted question for us. What if the problem was never death? Our story begins with Joe, a part-time middle school music teacher. When he's offered a full-time position, he doesn't seem very excited, unlike his mother, who's thrilled by the news. Joe reluctantly says he'll accept the job as it's what those around him, especially his mother, have always wanted. But then he gets a call with the opportunity of a lifetime, an audition with Dorothea Williams, a famous artist. Joe arrives to meet Dorothea, who doesn't seem very friendly at first, but as soon as he starts playing, he gets completely carried away, impressing Dorothea, who invites him to play again at 7 p.m. for a live performance. Joe can't believe it and runs out screaming with joy. He's so excited that he nearly gets hit by falling bricks, almost run over, but eventually falls into a manhole and dies. He realizes he's in a strange place and doesn't understand what's happening at first. But after talking to other souls, he understands he's dead and that all the souls are heading toward the great beyond. Joe realizes there's no turning back, so he runs for his life. In his attempt to escape, he falls into a place called the Great Before, where baby souls and entities called Jerry reside. Joe asks if he's dead, but they tell him not yet. His body is still in a waiting period. Meanwhile, Terry is counting the souls and realizes one is missing. Joe discovers where the baby souls jump to go to Earth and, desperate to return, he tries to jump, but it's in vain. Jerry finds him and takes him to the area where mentors are prepared. Joe has no choice. If he doesn't become a mentor, he'll have to go to the great beyond, so he randomly grabs someone else's badge. Joe arrives at the seminar where the other mentors are gathered. Each one is assigned a baby soul whom they must help find its spark in order to earn a pass to go to Earth. At that moment, Joe realizes that if he helps a soul find its spark, he could steal its Earth pass to revive and make it to the show. But he's assigned Soul 22, a restless soul with absolutely no intention of living on Earth, who has already rejected legendary mentors like Mother Teresa and Abraham Lincoln. Joe tries to convince her by revealing that he's not actually the psychologist whose badge he's carrying, and explains his true intention to return to Earth. 22 finds this very interesting. She's never seen a case like Joe's, so she agrees to help him. Then, Joe shows her his life through a machine. When they arrive at the present moment, Joe is lying in a hospital bed. Desperate, he asks 22 for her badge so he can turn it into a pass to Earth. But 22 explains that she first needs to find her spark in order for the badge to activate and be given away. Joe tries everything he can to get 22's badge to activate, but nothing seems to truly interest her. Then, a Jerry arrives, trying to send Joe to the great beyond, since, like always, 22 still hasn't found her spark. In an attempt to buy time, 22 says they forgot to practice breakdancing, and maybe that's her spark. She takes Joe to a place called the Zone, the space between the physical and the spiritual, what people experience when they're completely immersed in an activity. There, we meet Moonwind, a borderless mystic who lives between the physical and spiritual worlds. He and his crew are dedicated to rescuing souls who have disconnected from life but whose bodies remain on Earth. Like an office worker running on autopilot. Seeing this, Joe tries to create a portal to return, but his portal leads to the great beyond. Still, he insists he's not dead yet, so Moonwind agrees to help him. While Joe meditates and the other mystics perform their ritual, Joe is able to see himself in the hospital. In a rush of desperation, he jumps too soon, dragging 22 along with him. Bam! Joe ends up in a cat, and 22 lands in Joe's body. 22 can understand everything Joe says, even from inside a cat, and vice versa. But to everyone else, Joe just sounds like a cat meowing.
Joe, desperate, tries to get 22, now in his body, to walk through the city to find Moonwind. But with zero experience in handling a human body, 22 finds walking through New York a near impossible mission. Joe motivates her with pizza, knowing his body loves it. That does the trick. 22 agrees to go find Moonwind. When they finally find him, Moonwind tells them that the body swap can only happen at 6:30 p.m., when a portal between Earth and the astral plane opens. That puts even more pressure on Joe, since his big performance is at 7 o'clock. Meanwhile, Terry is still digging through records in search of the missing soul. As 22 tries to hail a taxi, they suddenly run into Dorothea Williams. Joe panics, shoves 22 into the cab, and they speed off through the city. Back at the apartment, Joe forces 22 to clean up his body, and during a failed attempt at a haircut, boom, she messes it up completely. Now they have no choice but to go to his friend Dez's barbershop to fix it. At the barbershop, Dez and the others are surprised by the thoughtful, deep conversation they're having with who they think is Joe. They tell him they never imagined he was such a reflective person. During the conversation, Dez mentions that he actually wanted to be a veterinarian, but after his daughter got sick, he had to become a barber because barber school was cheaper than vet school. 22 assumes he must be unhappy since he's not doing what he was meant to do. But Dez just smiles and says, "I'm happy as a clam, my man." Not everyone can be Charles Drew inventing blood transfusions. Dez understands a fundamental truth. Expecting reality to match your plans is the perfect formula for suffering. Reality doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care about your childhood dreams, your detailed plans, or what you think you deserve. Reality just is, and you have a choice. Adapt your expectations to it, or keep pretending the world revolves around you. Dez chose sanity. Instead of being bitter about not becoming a veterinarian, he found fulfillment in being a great barber. Not because he settled, but because he realized that happiness doesn't come from making the world bend to your will. It comes from finding meaning in what's right in front of you. Terry discovers that the missing soul is Joe's, so she decides to go down to Earth to find him. But she's fully aware that no one can see her. Even though she sneaks around unnoticed, she ends up grabbing the wrong person, who freezes in shock after what they just witnessed. Meanwhile, Joe and 22 are on their way to the Half Note, the club where Joe will perform and where they're supposed to meet Moonwind to switch bodies. But along the way, 22 gets excited about every little thing she encounters. In the process, she accidentally rips Joe's pants, so they're forced to stop by Joe's mother's shop to get the suit repaired. 22 shows Joe's mom the tear, and she immediately starts arguing with him about going back to performing without a stable job, pension, or health insurance. The conversation grows heated as Joe challenges her, asking why she won't let him chase his dreams. She snaps back, "You can't eat dreams for breakfast, Joey." In the end, Joe admits that he doesn't want to die without his life having meant something. His mother softens, and instead of just repairing the pants, she offers him his father's suit, giving Joe a much-needed emotional boost. When they arrive at the Half Note and wait for Moonwind, 22 realizes that even though life is far from perfect, it's still worth living. She pulls out a collection of small objects she's gathered from people and moments that have enriched her time on Earth. For the first time, she feels a genuine desire to live. But she knows she has to return to the great before to find her spark. 22 starts thinking about all the things she enjoyed on Earth to figure out what her spark might be. When she suggests that maybe her spark is watching the sky or going for walks, Joe replies bluntly, "That's not a spark, 22. That's just regular old living." Joe's words echo a message we often hear in today's world. We've been conditioned to believe that ordinary life isn't enough, that we constantly need to chase the next big milestone to feel fulfilled. The saddest part is that we've lost the ability to find magic in the simple things, to value a conversation, a walk, or simply being alive as enough reason to believe that life is worth living. Moonwind arrives, ready to transfer Joe's soul back into his body, but 22 refuses to go through with it. She wants to stay on Earth to discover her spark, convinced that if she doesn't find it there, she never will in the great before. She runs off, and Joe chases after her, unaware that Terry has already located them. She opens a portal and captures them, returning both of them to the great before. Terry proudly presents 22, and Joe to the Jerrys. That's when they notice something surprising. 22's Earth Pass is now complete. Joe insists it's because she used his body on Earth. The Jerrys allow Joe to say goodbye before 22 makes her leap to Earth. Frustrated, Joe confronts 22 and tells her that he had never truly appreciated life until she lived it for him. As Joe walks off toward the great beyond, resigned to his fate, 22 suddenly tosses him her Earth Pass. At that moment, a Jerry appears. Joe hides the pass and asks, "So, what was 22's purpose, after all?" To which Jerry replies, "We don't assign purposes. Where did you get that idea?" Joe answers, "Because I have piano. It's what I was born to do. That's my spark." And Jerry responds, "A spark isn't a soul's purpose. Ooh, you mentors and your passions, your purposes, your meaning of life." So basic. Sometimes we believe that our spark, that one thing we're passionate about, has to become our life's purpose, the reason we exist. But life is so much richer and more complex than that. It's a full experience, made up of passions, relationships, joy, pain, and everything in between. Reducing it all to a single thing means missing out on the entire symphony of what it means to be alive. Joe returns to Earth and rushes to the half note to meet Dorothea, but he's late. They've already found another pianist. Still, Joe doesn't give up. He manages to persuade Dorothea to give him a chance, and she agrees. As they begin to play, Joe gets lost in the moment and fully immerses himself in the music. But when the performance ends, he turns to Dorothea and asks, "What happens next?" To which she replies, "We come back tomorrow night and do it all again." Joe is stunned. He can't believe that's it. That this routine is what he spent his whole life chasing. Then Dorothea tells him a story. The fish swims up to this older fish and says, "I'm trying to find this thing they call the ocean." "The ocean?" says the older fish. "That's what you're in right now?" "This?" says the young fish. "This is water. What I want is the ocean." We spend so much time searching for the ocean of our dreams that we forget we're already swimming in it. The life we have now, with all its flaws and routines, isn't the waiting room before the perfect moment. It is the perfect moment, disguised as the everyday. The ocean isn't a destination we reach. It's the very medium we already exist in. Joe, deep in thought, arrives home. He sets down the small objects that 22 collected while in his body and sits at the piano, lacking motivation. But as he looks at the objects, he begins to recall the special moments connected to each one. And that's when his inspiration returns. He starts playing the piano again. He realizes that his life, just as it was, had already been deeply meaningful. The people, the experiences, everything he had lived was enough. He had already been in the ocean. As Joe keeps playing, he enters the zone, where he once again meets Moonwind and jumps aboard his ship. Moonwind tells him that 22 has become a lost soul, because lost souls are those who become obsessed with something that disconnects them from life. And now that 22 has technically lived, she's turned into one of them. They soon spot 22 in the distance and begin chasing her, but her lost soul form grows larger and larger as she runs. Joe finally reaches her at the Earth portal. 22 swallows Joe, and inside, he can see what's running through her mind. All the voices of past mentors telling her she's not good enough to live. In that moment, Joe realizes that the worst mentor of all was him. Because when 22 found meaning in life's simple things, he told her, "Those aren't purposes, that's regular old living." In the middle of this storm, Joe remembers that he has an object that connects 22 to her meaningful moments on Earth. He uses it to break through her darkness, reconnecting her to the memory of when they were on Earth, and explaining that her spark isn't her purpose. That final box on her pass gets filled when she's ready to live, and she already is. 22 stops being a lost soul, and Joe gives her his Earth pass. 22 protests, saying that if he gives it away, he won't be able to return to Earth. But Joe smiles and says he's okay with it. He's already lived. 22 hesitates, afraid to leap to Earth. Joe reassures her, promising to jump with her as far as he can. And when the moment comes, he lets go of her hand and reappears on the path to the great beyond. Just then, a Jerry appears and thanks Joe for helping 22 earn her Earth Pass. Because of that, they've decided to give him another chance. Joe asks what about Terry and the soul count, and Jerry replies that they've already taken care of it. Jerry then asks Joe how he plans to spend his life. Joe says he's not sure, but what he does know is that he's going to live every minute of it. In the end, the question isn't what we're going to achieve or who we're going to become. The real question is whether we'll be truly present for our own life, whether we'll recognize that every ordinary day is full of small miracles waiting to be noticed. Because living isn't about reaching a destination. Living is realizing that we're already here.